Secretary, thanks for being here. I want to talk to you about the Red Hill closure and remediation. Once the decision was taken to shut down Red Hill, that part went relatively smoothly and was ahead of schedule. And then there's the whole enterprise of the new concept of operations as it relates to fuel in the Pacific. I'm going to set that aside for the moment because the thing that the community is working on and thinking about the most is long-term health impacts and long-term environmental impacts, and what of the appropriated money that we provided to the department is allocated for that. Now, we just got a brief, and so we have some broad categories for what I think is called community response, but I'd love it if you could just articulate both at the conceptual level and in as granular a manner as you can what you're planning to do with the remainder of the money as it relates to making sure that none of that petroleum eventually makes its way back into any of those aquifers, and that anyone who's been harmed by ingesting petroleum product gets taken care of by the department.
Well, thanks, Senator Schatz. As you mentioned, once the defueling was complete, then we stood down the Red Hill Task Force, and then stood up a task force that the Navy is now in charge of, and is charged with environmental remediation. And I've had personal conversations with both the leader of the task force and, most importantly, the Secretary of the Navy on how important this is, and they are committed to ensuring that they do the right things to make sure that we get this right going forward. We owe it to the members of the community to ensure that we do in fact do this. In terms of specific amounts of funds that are allocated to each segment of this, I'll have to take that for the record and come back to you on that, sir.
That's fine. And we just got briefed on it yesterday, and it's still a bit of big pots of money categories, 95 million here, 32 million there, 562 going to the task force. So we don't even know what these numbers mean. But I think, the community is asking me what's happening with the money. It has to be obligated by the end of this fiscal year. And so time is short. So if we can get fidelity on that, it doesn't have to be with you, but it can be any member of your team. That would be very, very
And while we're at it, Senator,
yes.
with your permission, I'd just like to thank you and the delegation for your continued support. Without that, we probably wouldn't have the adequate resources to do the things that are going to need to be done going forward here.
Thank you. General Brown, the amount of aid that this committee can provide is finite. Given that the Indo-Pacific is the priority theater, I'm going to say this somewhat less diplomatically than my prepared question. What keeps you up at night? What are the unfunded priorities that you think we really need to take a hard look at in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, the things that I stay focused on, and I'll just tell you, I'm very confident in our joint force, so there's not much that keeps me up at night. But I do stay focused on ensuring we have the capability and capacity for our joint force to execute what the nation asks. And so it is the modernization things that we highlighted earlier in this hearing that we had to defer because of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And so I want to make sure that we actually have that capability and capacity as we modernize. It's also the multi-year procurement that we also spoke about on munitions. I also want to have a strong defense industrial base so we can produce those munitions and those capabilities so we don't have a fair fight. I want to have an unfair fight where we have the advantage and do that not only with our joint force, but also with our allies and partners.
This is a little bit outside of our committee, but a lot of us are on the MILCON committee as well. The other thing I'd flag is overseas MILCON is never the most exciting thing for a member of the United States Senate to fund, but it is really essential in the Indo-Pacific theater. And then certainly in the state of Hawaii, a lot of the DOD's assets, bases and installations and everything else are sitting on really, really old infrastructure. So that's the other thing that's less exciting to fund: sewer systems, water systems, electrical redundancy, and all the rest of it. But we're not capable if we don't have those things operating well. So let's at least elevate it, even though you know, it's not exactly the kind of thing that you do a ribbon cutting for if you're a good politician. So, thank you.
And all those things cost money, and it's another reason we need to revisit the caps. Thank you, Senator Schatz.
Thank you.
Senator Capito.